This is the Harmonic Motion Podcast, a place where you, dear listener, can join with automotive aftermarket professionals as they delve into and discuss the matters which matter.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Harmonic Motion Podcast. I'm absolutely delighted to have 5 top technicians in the house to chat, talk, and generally think about things that affect our trade and industry. So I'm going to kick off by letting the guys introduce themselves and giving you a brief history going back several generations of their own life story, including what they ate for breakfast and where they went to school. Hopefully not. With that in mind, I'm going to start with Eugene. So Eugene, welcome to the Harmonic Motion Podcast.
Thanks, James. My own name is Eugene O'Shea, from Kildare in Ireland. I have my own garage, Autowise. In the trade 28 years, with Tech Topics 2 years now, yeah.
Yep. No, awesome. Great stuff. And what are you doing here your reason for visiting? So what we've done is obviously, as you guys are in the house, we've taken the opportunity to take you one side, ply with pizza and invite you into the chat. So what have you been here doing today, Eugene? What sort of stuff have you been up to?
So we're in the middle of in the start of the Master Tech course. I finished a Diet Tech course with yourselves. So today we were in depths of the understanding the ECUs and ECU logic and hopefully building a robot tomorrow. Yeah,
awesome stuff. No, great stuff. Thanks for that, Eugene. That's perfect. Thanks very much. And then I'm going to move on.
I'm Stephen McLeod from Aberdeenshire. So coming here again 2 years and doing the Master Tech now. So really excited to get going and just kicking on from where we left off in the Diag one.
Yeah, no, awesome, great stuff. What are you up to work-wise, Stephen? What are you doing what keeps you at the pub?
So I just took a change from just a normal technician role where I was doing mostly Diag work, and then to take on a director role in a garage. So
nice.
Where I used to work, but it's got its own challenges.
Yeah.
That I'm finding out very fast.
Yeah, no, good. Hopefully we'll maybe touch on some of that where relevant. So yeah, no, brilliant. Welcome, great stuff, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Cool stuff.
Hi, my name's Callum. I work for CCM Garages. I've been in the trade since I left school. I was 16. Went to college, just did that part-time. Then found myself into an apprenticeship and just carried on from there, trying to strive to be the best I can be. I won the Young Mechanic of the Award this year.
Yes.
So that was a nice little achievement for myself, which I was pretty proud of. I'm doing the Master Diagnostic Technician course here at Tech Topics. Been here a couple of times and really, really enjoyed the courses. So my big aim here is to basically get along people similar-minded to myself, to aim and just build knowledge.
Yeah, no, brilliant. I was there, in fact, for the award. That was at the it was in June, wasn't it? At
the
NEC,
NEC.
Yeah, no, great stuff. So, and congratulations and well done. No, no mean feat. So well done for being selected. And yeah, you make a good point. We tend to the group mentality that we've got here and the organisation that we do is generally putting people of a like-minded situation together to grow together. So you've summed that up really well, actually. That's our intention. So yeah, and welcome to the podcast. Well done for putting yourself in front of the microphone and under scrutiny. Yeah, brilliant, good stuff. Okay, and next up,
my name is Malc from Mansfield. I run a BMW specialist, local garage, small. There's me, another mechanic and a receptionist.
Yeah, awesome.
I've been doing it for the last 5 years. I've been in trade since I left school. I did take a bit of time out to do Snap-on franchise to make some money so I could own a garage.
Yes.
That's about it, really.
Yeah, no, good stuff. Welcome on the course, and also welcome on the podcast.
Thank you.
And then last but not least...
Yeah, I'm Frazer from Essex, director and technician of Ramsdale Garage. Started with Eugene and Sean on the Diag Tech course, now on the Master Tech. So yeah.
Yeah, no, good stuff. And of course, we've seen you on the Top Garage. You've been we've taken the garage up to Top Garage as well, haven't you? Yeah. I see that. Are you there this year?
Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. Great. Yeah, that's good stuff. So, yeah, welcome. So, thanks for the introductions. And I'm going to ask the room a question, so directed at nobody in particular. So please jump in whenever you can. And the question I'm going to start with really centres about increasing technology and complexity of the motor vehicle that we see. That's sort of electronics and software. With the advance of cars, I'm not necessarily thinking about electric cars, but just generally, how do you see your role has changed then as a technician if you were to go maybe 5 years back? What things are different that maybe surprise you, or if they don't surprise you, the kind of stuff that you're doing now that, you know, the average technician who isn't in training or the average garage owner who isn't keeping up, you know, what sort of surprises you about the stuff you've got to do today versus the way it was 5 years ago, even pre-COVID, 2019?
Software.
Software.
I think that's a big one. For me personally, I found that software fixes things. If you've got an issue with a car, you can just a software fix. Just programming it rather than an actual it needs something replacing.
Yeah. So rather than hard mechanical stuff, you're using. I termed it once in an article I wrote as the binary screwdriver. So you're throwing software at a car to fix an issue. Yeah, it's a really, really interesting point there, Malc. And has that changed the way, you know, if we're thinking about cars, the life cycle of a car coming into the workshop is the client or the owner of the vehicle will be driving it, will have a problem, and then a light will come on or it'll act up in some way, and they're booking it in with you. Has it changed the way that you manage that inquiry? So, you know, your process in the workshop, you know, used to be kind of visual inspection and seeing everything's dropping off, and then you'd maybe look at what was going, you know, could you see anything wrong, and then you'd sort of build a plan. Is the way of dealing with those inquiries, how do you adapt your process to know or to fit software checking in? You know, how?
So, the first thing we do is look on service solutions, as BMW call them now, to see if there's a fix out there already. And that's if from the initial phone call, if I've got Diane saying this car's coming in, it's got this issue, I'm looking on BMW to see if there's a fix for that before it's even here, before it's even in the garage, to see if there's a software fix for that or a general guidance to which way you're going to start before the car's even on site.
No, interesting. And does that mean that your tools and equipments have changed? You know, so are you now relying on connecting with BMWs to BMW hardware and services in the cloud?
Yes. So I'm on the computer. I've literally got a laptop in front of me, near enough all day, every day. It's either within reach, or you know, it's on constantly. Just all day, it's on, and it's on BMW's ISTA site, AOS site. Sorry, so it's just on constantly. You're constantly referring to it. You constantly, even if it's not a software fix or anything like that, you're constantly referring to it for information.
Yeah, maybe bulletins or wiring diagrams, And is that a big departure from the way it was, you know, when you started? Because your place is now, you know, you've been in there 5 years. Have you noticed a change to be that more focused on that kind of software way of doing things?
So when I first started, the lads at the garage didn't even really know how to use that software. We did come on a course with yourselves to gain that knowledge. And then just using it, and we've gone from using it to you pay as you go to now it's we just pay for the year, and we just like I say, it's on every day, and we use it every day. Like from using it probably once a week if we were lucky, to it's constant now.
So it's a big part of your business now, that connection to BMW and that authorization to do everything that the dealer can do through their portal. That's really enabling you to be acting as that BMW specialist in your region. Then that's something that's pretty different. It's really interesting. I think that is, again, it's a big one. Software updates to fix hard faults. One question I've got for the room is, how does that go down with your clients? You know, if you've got that situation with a car with a problem, and they might be expecting, you know, typically a plug-in and a fault code, and then a fault code and some wiring checks, and then maybe a repair. Is there a different thing that you've got to do in terms of communicating with your clients about the software update might have to be done first before you do anything else? How does that sort of fit in the repair conversation about their customer journey, I suppose you'd call it?
Well, we've changed from selling it as a plug-in or diagnostics to an assessment. And we use the word assessment constantly.
Yeah.
Because no more than what Malc was saying about software updates, an update is one thing, but part of your diagnostic process now has to be looking at the software version and knowing, is that software version, is there a known fault in that version? Should it be on an older version? Should it be on a newer version? So it's just having that information as well, which is key.
Yeah, yeah. And again, that, I suppose, it creates its own batch of problems, because if you're, Malc's got it sussed, I suppose, in a way of being single brand or BMW and Mini, you know, but in that BMW, under that umbrella of BMW, what happens if, because you're doing multiple brands and yours,
we're multi-brand. Yeah.
So how do you get on across several brands with, do you have to have that same connectivity and dealer tooling to be able to do that?
Yeah, you just need the dealer, not necessarily the dealer tool, but the dealer information.
Yeah, to be able to log in and get that background and history. Yeah. Now, what about the clients? So when you tell them, you know, you have to do a software fix, do they understand that? Is that do they look at you sideways and go, what are you on about, man?
Yeah, I think what I normally describe it to as our customers is, I try and put it in computer and phone terms, because let's face it, 98% of people will have a modern day smartphone or a laptop, and I try to explain it as in that, you know, it's the same way you update your laptop, you update your computer, iPad, whatever it is. Cars are now no different. Yeah, you know, they've got multiple computers in there, every single one's running its own single software, whereas your phone's just running one lot, and so is your computer. Yeah, true. No, that's a good way. So you think that your clients are more savvy with the technology because they're having to do, well, look, televisions even need an update, don't you? Switch the TV on and the thing wants a firmware. Yeah. So you don't think that, so the clients are being brought along into technology because of other technology, so the car's not so different. But how do you find they react to the fact that your TV sort of does its firmware for free, but your car doesn't? It needs to be paid for, and that as part of a diagnostic routine. You know, you might sell the software update as a pre-repair service. So coming in for the assessment, we found it needs software, there's a charge for the assessment, there's a charge for software, and it's a case of sucking it and see, because we don't know if that software is going to fix it. How does that do you, I know we don't necessarily all get involved in that conversation, but how do you feel that that's now being accepted by clients that own complicated cars, that we might need to throw software versions at it to see even if it's going to fix it? Is that a palatable, easy discussion, or?
I don't think so.
No, communication is key from the start. If you start off saying, look, this is what we need to check first, and then go through the process and say, look, this is where we are now, this is what we have to do next. We may have to do the X, Y, and Z after that, but it's just keeping them informed throughout the process of the job. Yeah. Once you have the customer on side, then you've won the battle.
Or there's other garages just go straight in bolt-on parts. It's still going to have the same issue.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think we're the guys in the room here are well past that. But you know, I suppose that's an interesting, wasn't it, Fraser? If you're seeing a client that's had maybe a lower level garage service the vehicle and they put parts on it, and it comes to you and you have the conversation about software. You know, it sort of puts them into a, maybe I suppose it's a difficult conversation to have. I was just wondering how you do that. I know there are garages out there that don't get involved with software updates, that are trying to do diag, that aren't doing software updates. It's an impossible task. But
that's funny, really, because earlier we were talking about it, and I see no software update issues.
No.
I've seen one in the last 2 years. Yeah. But we were just saying that earlier, everyone gets different things, and strange how it works, but.
Yeah. You're going to have 3 next week.
At least 3 next week. Yeah, it is. It runs in fits and starts, of course, you know. And when we think about software updates, I think, what's the weirdest fault that you've seen that was cured by a software update? I got a couple. I'll share if you guys haven't seen them.
Knock on an M2 suspension knock.
Oh, okay.
On an M2.
Nice.
And it's a software update.
Yeah.
No amount of bolting anything to it's going to fix
It's
it.
going to fix it. That's electronic damper control style system. Yeah, yeah, and that's a software fix. It's almost incredible, isn't it, when you think about knocking and clunking? But you know, in the old style mechanic would think it's a Bushworn or something. But yeah, you could see with an electronically controlled shock absorber there might be parameters and stuff that need tweaking. But that's a really good one, Malc.
You try explain that one to the customer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I understand you've got a knock on your car.
Yeah.
This zeros and ones are going to fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The very first software update fix we had was 2017 Insignia. Drove over to the shop, turned it off, came back out, wouldn't start. Not recognising the clutch switch. Checked all the wiring, checked the switch, everything checked out. Checked the software version, there was an update available, updated the software, car fixed.
Yeah.
No rhyme or reason to it.
No. Just software. Yeah, bizarre, isn't it? When you think of those sort of situations, do you imagine if you didn't have software, the capability to do an update, how many hours you might burn or what parts might be thrown at a problem like that. We're thinking we'll have a clutch switch and it wasn't the clutch switch, well then we'll do a wiring overlay, it wasn't the wiring, and then you say, well, she might need an ECU, and you might cure it with an ECU if it came with a new software version. But this is where I think, where your clients, the clients that are using you, are benefiting from your investment really in staying up to date, to know they won't be been sent in the wrong direction. With the software update's going to fix it. You're going to get that quickly. Whereas a garage that's using maybe Snap-on scan tools or some other brand that don't have connectivity to the servers can't do that stuff. Yeah, that's an interesting point. From how do you sell that as a benefit to your clients? Because it is a huge benefit, isn't it? You can do that. No, that's an interesting. Anyone else have any weird faults they've cured with software?
Well, I had one with a TIG one, but we couldn't cure it because the software update wasn't available.
Ah, okay.
From Volkswagen.
Oh, right.
So they were going to still throw a DPF at it, which wouldn't cure it. It would just be a temporary fix.
Temporary fix, yeah. And that was that, Stephen, because the software hadn't been developed yet by Volkswagen. They knew it was an issue, and there was a software fix in the mix somewhere, but it wasn't released to the aftermarket yet, or they didn't have it. Yeah,
they never had it yet.
Yeah.
So it was all down to the DPF being blocked
for
a start, and then we cleaned it, and then the fix would be a software update, but their only answer from technical was to replace the DPF.
Right. Yeah.
And then wait for the software to be
be released.
To be released.
Sounds very, very similar to the dealer way of doing it sometimes. When I guess if Volkswagen, if that's a warranty job, for instance, the vehicle's still under warranty, it gets the client out of their hair, and the material cost of a DPF to Volkswagen is probably in the tens of pounds, not in the hundreds of, because they've got links to DPF manufacturer. You can see that working, but it's a bit rich, I suppose, when it comes to the aftermarket. You just got to put 900 quid of the DPF on that a minute, and just keep your fingers crossed that we get software for it by the time then this one blocks up. But yeah, I think the manufacturers of vehicles are also facing these issues where they know there are problems with the vehicle that can be solved with software, but they themselves, if you imagine how many different makes and models of ECUs are fitted on, how many brands or how many makes of models of vehicles they have, what sort of engineering resource they must have in the background working on software fixes. It's crazy, isn't it? And I think probably if we had a manufacturer of motor vehicles here and we asked them what was their biggest difference, they'd probably go, keeping abreast of software fixes is probably one of the things that we almost didn't know we needed to have. Yeah.
Sorry. I just think that conversation in the aftermarket's harder to have with the customer than it is for the dealer to have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if we throw that on and we know it's not a cure, they're coming back angry.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. In that case, whether you defer that to the dealer, but yeah, or have that difficult conversation with the client and say, this is the background. You might be better off going to Volkswagen and having that conversation, that difficult conversation. But you don't want to be sending your clients back to the main dealer, do you?
But it's back to that as well. Like it inform the customer there is a software update available. So before we proceed with checking this and checking that, we have to make sure that it's up to the latest software version. Yeah. Otherwise, we could be wasting hours checking X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost that has to be done as part of the assessment then, Eugene. So we need to make sure your car is running the latest versions, checking it for any known issues that are related, and doing the update. And maybe that might involve the client having the car back a course and then trying it with the new software update. And sometimes, it's difficult, isn't it, when your client takes the car when they think you've had something done and they're almost surprised when it isn't fixed, and they come back and you have to remind them of the conversation. No, do you remember you were test driving that because we had the fix? Yeah, but you're right, absolutely. Clear conversation, clear communication about what the status of the repair is, and maybe ensuring your client's on the same wavelength. And it can be difficult with gentlemen and ladies that aren't technical to try and get that over. They're not into the stuff that we are, and having that conversation to ensure they really understand is a big skill. And part of the front of house, or part of your job as the garage or the senior technician in the garage, to have those convos and make sure they're on that. Yeah. Anybody else got anything weird that was solved by software? No? I had a clunking in reverse, like a transmission issue, and you'd drop this thing into reverse and bang, it would go like you're thinking, the clutch is gone or there's a bush worn in the transmission, and that software fix cured it. You could drop it in reverse and it would gradually take up the drive.
On a manual or
Auto on a BM, yeah, it was an auto. So snatching in reverse, known software fix. That was one of, and feeling you use your technician's skills over many years, and the butt dyno was telling me that was inside the box, that was a terminal, that was going to be big repair, and no, it was a fix with software. Just again, the bulletin search, symptoms by the chassis range, and it came up with a software fix. One of the things that scares me to death about software fixes is the collateral damage that can come if it goes a bit wrong. And I think that's one of the things I learned early on, was to try and have that conversation with the client that, do you know what, and BMW in particular is a really good example, where it won't just allow you to do one unit. Your car has to have all software levels lifted in one go, and there are some known issues, for instance, with head units, where some units on the car don't really like to have software put in them, and it's almost a last resort. And if you came in with this clunk and you have to do a global software, and then you're phoning the client to say, Jad, you know what, your infotainment unit shit the bed, I need 8,000 quid for a new one before we can proceed to try and solve your clunk. How that conversation, when technically it's gone wrong, it's nothing that you've done. Cash units is another one, wasn't it? Footwell modules, there's a load of known issues that happen with software fixes that break the car in a different way during the process of updating. And I think that's probably one of the really most difficult conversations to have with a client, that it's now failed in a different way, but we may have fixed the original thing. That's a tough one, isn't it? It is a tough one.
We do, when in those instances when we are programming, we do forewarn customers that, look, we are programming, and it programs everything on the car. And this may bring issues, especially if they've had them remapped, coded, or anything like that. You'll just lose that. You're back to basics, your standard, what's it called? But because you've got those on there also, you may have an issue with a unit going down because the programming's not gone through right. Yeah. And then you're trying to explain that once I press that button, I'm in the hands of the BMW programming gods. Yes. And it takes as long as it takes, and some of them last overnight. And we have had a couple of units shit themselves. Yeah. It's a difficult conversation, isn't it? It's one of those conversations, one of those phone calls you dread doing.
But going back to Malc's thing about remapping, that's one big thing we're seeing an awful lot. We had a beautiful Volkswagen Caddy 2016. Customer had it from brand new, absolutely fantastic condition car. Always had a service, always looked after it. And as part of the assessment, we have the interview. Is when they come in, they ask, has anything been mapped out? Has anything been deleted? Who's been added? Who's worked on it? And to this customer's best knowledge, no, nothing has been deleted out of it. Nothing, everything was fine. This car was running really bad. No warning lights on the dash. No nothing. Live data looked
good. Yeah,
good. Everything. It couldn't fault it, but the car was driving really shit. So we said, look, we're going to have to put it back on the latest software update. And as soon as we did, We had DPF warnings, AdBlue warnings, loads of warnings, where all of this had been mapped out of it.
Oh my God.
So got back to the customer and said, look, you've had a remap on this in previous, where he had, but he hadn't, to his knowledge, he hadn't got it done. He brought it to somebody with an AdBlue fault, gave them €300, and they gave him the car back fixed.
Wow.
He didn't know he had the AdBlue mapped out. He didn't know he had the DPF mapped out. The garage that done it literally informed him of nothing, just said, yep, that's
It's fixed.
And what they had done in that particular thing, they had deleted the complete fault table
My God.
out of the car.
Yeah.
So we fixed his car, but we had to spend I think nearly $7,000 of a bill on that car.
Oh well, yeah. That's a tricky conversation, isn't it? Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting point with the remap brigade that are into quick fixes. You know, a little bit about client, I suppose, selecting a reputable garage, and the garage that did it may have been reputable, may not have had a bad reputation until that kind of stuff starts catching up with you a year or two down the road. But it does bring into question, doesn't it, the ability or the responsibility of garages, doing that kind of stuff, and you see it all over. Well, I won't say, but social media platforms, people offering solutions in inverted commas. You know, with cars have got issues, they're doing a solution, which is essentially a bit of a dirty remap. And like you say, deleting it, it's that must have been some shock.
Well, it's one thing deleting it, it's one thing, the customer requesting it or for whatever reason, but it's another thing not informing the customer what's been done.
Yeah, that's a surprise. Yeah. Oh gosh.
You probably find that they didn't know how to fix it.
Yeah, that was their go-to move. Just delete it. Yeah,
just remove the software that told you there's something wrong.
Yeah. In this case, they removed all the fault table. We could. The reason we knew it was tampered with was we unplugged every single sensor in the car.
No faults came.
Not one fault came on.
No. It's a good shout.
So
isn't
just made the vehicle illegal.
Yeah.
Pretty much for the customer without them knowing.
Yeah.
Well, that's starting coming back on the garage now as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it shouldn't it? Yeah.
Had that on a Vauxhall Combo. I can't remember what fault I was chasing for or sorting. And then I noticed in live data on the road test, knock sensor wasn't responding.
Reaction. Oh, yeah.
So then I decided to go and have a look, and there was no power. And it turned out Vauxhall had deleted it.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Because it was still under warranty and they couldn't sort it.
Wow. Bloody hell. I know there's a few of those Mercedes had to be, back in the knock sensor day when the
temporary fixes,
when after COVID and all the supply chains had gone wrong, you couldn't buy knock sensors for love nor money. And there were all sorts of solutions or temporary measures offered by vehicle manufacturers. Now, how official that was, who knows? But, we know of lots of cases where the car has had a knock sensor fault, goes in for a software fix and then comes back and the thing's not reacting. Yeah, I think there are a lot of those maybe running around. And it makes our job walking in, maybe 50, 60,000 miles later when the car has developed a fault. How do you unpick what's been done somewhere else? And it's another great point about software. It is, as Eugene says, very often you have to go, right, forget the base level that you're on, and Malc, in your description to your clients, if it's had a remap, it's going to wipe it back to normal. That's sometimes obviously what we have to do, and I think for me, with the OE tooling and the ability to do software updates, getting it back to a base level sometimes is your big gameplay when it all looks a little bit weird. And as you say, the client may have no understanding of that, and waiting for them is a huge bill. I know now BMW, with some of their faster data, they're kind of looking at they're reporting stuff from the vehicle back to the server, because the car is now connected, where they're starting to see that stuff happen. And weird stuff, like if your car is being mapped, they'll see that your road speed is going up, but your GPS navigation isn't moving, so they know it's on a rolling road. So there's some collaborative data that they're starting to flag issues. And you've probably seen it yourself when you plug a car in and you get that warning about warranty. You'd have seen
engine tuning detected.
Yeah, engine tuning detected, or these following repair operation, or these repair groups have no warranty, where they're starting to try and spot that stuff, because they themselves have got the issue. The Volkswagen recall about, the emission scandal recall, they were caught originally, early doors when they were doing software updates. Now that they'd found the same thing that you'd found, Eugene. The thing had been mapped to death, coming for the software update and the little carrier inside the mass airflow sensor to make the emissions start to read right again. And they'd had DPF deletes and EGR deletes, and the client was going back to Volkswagen saying, hang on a minute, it was fine until I bought it here. You've done this fix in inverted commas, and now all these lights have gone. So they've been caught with that themselves. And this is really what's, I suppose, that has led towards the move where the vehicles are reporting back some of that stuff, to the central server. If you look at manufacturers also, they're going down the roads of over-the-air updates. So where the car is connected to the internet, it can do its own updates. So there isn't the option maybe for us to do them. Tesla probably the first one to take it on full steam as they're leading the way. While you park the car up overnight, it can do its own updates, and it sort of keeps itself up to date because, with the best will in the world, cars that drop out of the dealer network and that are in the aftermarket being serviced, unless you're at a top garage like you guys work in, many, average Joe garages don't have software updates. They don't have the ability to connect. They don't have subscriptions. They don't have the tooling. They don't have the knowledge. And the car that's maybe in year 4 after the warranty, if it's being serviced and maintained at an average Joe's garage, is not getting software updates or software fixes either. And that's the thing. I think it's become part of the maintenance, isn't it? It's become part of keeping a car up together, service and maintaining it. It's also software updates. Yeah.
Well, even changing parts now. I know on the Fords, when you replace the knock sensor, you have to do a software update for that knock sensor to work.
So Mercedes like that as well.
Yeah, just putting it on and resetting everything back doesn't work for that new knock sensor to operate. You have to update the software.
Yeah, there's another interesting one with my foray deep into the AdBlue and NOx reduction system faults on, not necessarily related to that, but transits that have had fuel filters changed, and the average Joe garage has tried to bleed the filter by cranking the thing on the key. The ECU does a timeout because it knows you've done an extended cranking phase. It's counting how long the vehicle's been cranking for, and it sets an extended cranking fault in the instrument cluster, and it will not crank on the key now until that issue's resolved. And the only way you can resolve that issue is by doing a software update on the instrument cluster. So the car's in for service, guy cranks her over on the key, it flags that code. The only way out of jail is a software fix in the instrument cluster. Now, I find that really interesting because I think the manufacturer is knowing that the garage hasn't followed the procedure in the repair manual, because all the repair manuals tell you to bleed the system prior to. There's a special function in the control unit. You run the electric pump, you keep the ignition on for half an hour, let the pump cycle, then you start and run the car and let it idle. Don't drive it, don't rev it, and then you're supposed to drive it, and then after the road test bring back and let it idle again afterwards. So they know that process hasn't been carried out. Of course, that process is critical because it doesn't damage the pump. If you're cranking over a vehicle with no fuel in the filter, the pump's cranking over, maybe running dry or not building pressure. We've all seen CP4 pumps where the little, they fill full of swarf because the little shoe turns 90 degrees to the cam and the rotor and it starts wearing through. I think it's really interesting that Ford particularly have caught this as an issue now and said, if you're a bit of a Mickey Mouse garage, I don't know what you're doing, we will stop that car from cranking and set a fault that needs the dealer tool to cure it, because we want to put a big X in the fuel pump warranty box if you've been cranking over, because a lot of those cars, of course, under warranty, being fleet maintained. I find that really interesting. Yeah, so manufacturers are using software to try and preserve warranty, but also to catch when, I suppose, I'm not going to say unprofessional, but where you didn't follow the procedure and you've maybe jeopardised some mechanical aspects of that. It's really quite interesting.
Well, it's going back to what you were saying about, if you don't know, you don't know.
No.
So like if you've, never gone on training, not keeping up with the modern technology, 10 years ago, that's how you started a car after doing a fuel filter.
Yeah.
You cranked it till the battery went dead, and then you put the booster pack on it, you cranked it some more.
Mm-hmm.
You just can't do that with the modern stuff.
No, you can't. No. And that brings us round to training. You guys are in the unique position where you see the benefit of training and you're investing in yourself and your business and your garage and your future. That there are many that still don't get it. You've probably got garages that might use you even that don't get trained. They don't, or even keeping up to date, with web seminars and webinars. There's no excuse not to train, and there's various levels of quality of training. But I think Yeah, probably in terms of, how cars have evolved. I think the new systems, the rapidity that the new systems are coming out, it's almost part of keeping your garage going, is keeping yourself trained and up to date with what's happening in the systems, as well as keeping your tools up to date and your subscriptions up to date. I suppose that's probably a big difference for me again, is training is an essential part of knowing and understanding. And as Malc said, you need to have your subscription to BMW. And I suppose you also need to build a bit of that into your day, because if you read service and repair instructions, for instance, that Ford not cranking it is in the repair instructions for a fuel filter. So if you read how to do a fuel filter, it would tell you. Pardon me. But I think a lot of garages go, this is the way I always do fuel filters. What has changed in the land of fuel filters? It's still a filter that filters fuel. And not realising that the control system has changed. So you can understand how people are caught out, but you can also say, well, it's kind of your responsibility to keep up to date. And if you haven't had training in the last year, how far behind are you? Really, yeah. And of course, one of the things that we get from joining together on these courses every 6 weeks as you go through the program is we, of course, pick this stuff up between us. So there's the informal network of sharing of this type of thing that goes on, which is one of the hidden benefits of coming on training is the networking, isn't it? Is picking each other's brains and hearing each other's understanding of what's going on, and you get sparks and leads of new stuff. So as much as the formal taught modules are great, it's also some of that keeping abreast of technology, which is what you get. I was going to say a bit, Frazer, like the top garage is a bit like that as well, isn't it? In terms of informal networking with others.
Even that night we went, and the people you meet and the conversations. Yeah. I think you realise everyone's there is doing something right. Yeah. To put yourself in that position and put yourself out there. People are committed.
Yeah. Like-minded people sharing, yeah.
That's what I take the most out of the courses here as well. That.
It is, yeah.
And networking and massive thing.
It is, isn't it? Yeah. Keeping up to date, yeah.
But I think it's going the way you either learn or leave, because even what it's been like the last few years, so I think learn or leave, because I think it's getting even worse, and some of the VAG stuff you need the genuine tool just to do the rear brake pads. And
service a lot of the service functions behind gateways and what have you.
Yeah, so.
But it's even going back to that, having the not necessarily the genuine tool, but a tool that will do it.
All the knowledge to know that if you get in that position,
it's knowing that, before you take on that job, I need to have this, because how many people have gone balls into it and the new pads are in and the calipers won't mind back, and all of a sudden you press the button and you have two fake calipers. It's you're in a world of pain then. So.
And then you still need gateway access. Yeah. Even though you've got the tool, but you still need gateway access to Volkswagen or whoever.
Yeah. So like having the network we have and having that structure there, you can fire out that question and say, look, I'm having this issue, and knowing somebody else will be come across it, and if you're not in this system, you are on your own.
I think that's what puts you levels above the rest. Honestly, the company you keep, and everyone's got the same. Even if we've had problems where no one's known, and you just fire sensible direction ideas to each other, and
they're not always sensible.
You're right there.
No, but again, they combined the sort of hive mind where if you know the guy's also struggling, you've got a good one and you're in deep, and it's not going to be something necessarily that simple, but. It is that network of like-mindeds that I think you can't get away from, even with the tools and the investment. It is a bit of a network and keeping abreast of that stuff. Yeah, but you're dead right. Without that knowledge, you end up deeper behind it. But I really don't understand how people that don't invest that bit really how they sleep at night. It must be worrying. It's worrying for us that know. What must you be going through?
I think they don't think they need to. They need to until. I think it's until you start doing it and you realise what's out there to have from everyone else not doing it, and only being in a few garages. There's certainly only a few in 40-mile radius of me. I'd say that up doing something right. So
Well, look at the servicing, what we've been on about tonight. Brake pads, you can't do it.
yeah,
Fuel filter,
yeah.
can't do it.
No.
We are
Such basic stuff.
basic stuff, yeah. So they can't even turn around and go, well, I just do servicing.
Yeah.
Because in future, you're not going to be able to do that.
Or service lights are getting harder.
Yeah, service
Yeah.
lights,
Yeah.
service history.
Service history. That's
That's
a great
all
one.
online.
Yeah. And in a way, I often think that my mindset all throughout my career is when it gets difficult is great.
Yeah.
And I've taken that opportunity to go, if it's hard and it's difficult, it's going to rule out the people that don't keep up, and there's going to be more good work for me. And I don't mind. I like the pain of keeping update, and I like the investment, and I like to keep abreast. And actually, the fact that leaves the people that aren't investing behind is kind of tough, but they've got an option to update. And if the manufacturers, I sort of celebrate the advancements in technology because, hey, it makes the cars better. There are features in cars now there never used to be, and we have to just keep update, and it's part of the cost of doing business, really. We accept that. But yeah, so many garages have never had training since college and are buying, tools off of people that hope they'll get themselves out of this mess, but without really knowing. And that's a big differentiator. But I think that then the trick is to let your clients know how much better you are than the others out there, because it's very easy to talk about how much from a client perspective. I've got this car, how much to ... without them really knowing that they're coming to, in your area, the kind of Gordon Ramsay level mechanic chef parallel. You're going to get top quality service here, top notch. We've got all the investment in training equipment, tools. You're going to get a good job. You're going to get it done right. That's probably how one of the secrets to unlock the pay back the investment in the business that you've got is making sure that your clients know that, and it's that's sometimes quite difficult.
We had one the other week where the customer went to 4 garages for a DPF fault, and we were the 5th one and the only ones who said we'll take it on.
Yeah,
And it was nothing.
Yeah, we were back in, what would have been 2017, 2018, we were getting a hell of a lot of Euro 6 emissions faults, and we just couldn't get our heads around them. Nothing made sense. Everything had changed, like that. Went and looked online to try to get some information online, and came across the DPF doctor, the famous Darren Darling.
Darren, yeah.
So we're a proud member of it, but like even to have that network and that backup, it just keeps you ahead of the game, and it makes the job so much easier.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and they do, again, good training and support throughout the job. I know Darren and the team there are good with the online training to keep you abreast of current technology and faults. And if you get stuck, again, that network, yeah.
But it just makes the job so much easier. Like, it's not about knowing the fix before the car comes in.
No.
It's having the support that, when you come across a fault, you can fix it. The information is there.
Yeah.
You know what tool you're going to need before you take on the job. So if I don't have this tool, I can't take on this job.
Yeah.
It's just having that information. Yeah.
Yeah.
The satisfaction from fixing, getting to the bottom of a fault is it's what makes every day enjoyable at your job. So
yeah, there's very, very few mechanics that are in it for the money.
No.
It's definitely the satisfaction of fixing the car. Yeah.
Yeah, taking that challenge on and doing it. Yeah, I suppose latterly then at a profit, you've got to do it profitably. But there is great satisfaction at solving those problems for others, doing it at a profit. Do you think so? There's a great point you've raised there, then, Frazer. So a client, were they known to you before? They were a virgin. They'd not been to you before. No. So you'd won some business that way. Do you think that's becoming more common where, somebody with a problem is being refused service in several garages before they come to somebody like you, because the garages are slowly realising that they can't take that stuff on. They've been burnt, maybe like the caliper situation there, they've been caught with something and they're just going, do you know what, that sounds a little bit tricky, I'm not even remotely interested.
Hard to say for diagnostics because we've only started pushing social media a bit more in the last 6 months towards diagnostics. Hopefully we'll attract more of that work. But yeah, a lot of our customers are return customers anyway. So there's a question about, would you take on
all work? Or if you'd never seen the client before, can you choose to be a little bit picky if they've not used you for service and maintenance and underlying, the good value, the good work that turns in a profit? Do you think garages are getting pickier about clients now where, you don't have to take on that car, you don't have to take on that client? And if you've got no existing relationship, if your first interaction with a client's over some horrendous job and you've got no underlying relationship, do you think that in itself is quite difficult because you don't know them, they don't know you, and there's no trust there? And with a tricky job, you need high levels of trust because the job could go quite pear-shaped one way or the other. Do you think garages are being a bit fussier about accepting novice customers or new customers with no trading history, especially when it comes with a diag job?
We're lucky because we can pick and choose what we want, and we do quite a lot. Because if it's the wrong job and the wrong customer, like you said before, it's never going to work. So if there's a job coming in and it's not going to be profitable, or it's going to be high chance of awkward conversations, or the customer's not going to like what they hear. That's a big one. Yeah, and then you're the bad person for. Yeah. And you're the one and they make out you're the one who's worn their car out. Or,
that was actually one of the very, very first conversations myself and you had, James, when I first started coming here, was interviewing the customer, and it's something. I'm probably taking it too far now. I find I'm nearly interrogating them at some stage. Yeah. But why are you here? Who normally fixes the car? What brought you?
Haven't they fixed the car?
Yeah. What's brought you to my doorstep? And we become extremely picky on what jobs you take in and why we're taking them in. If it's been to 6 or 7 garages, we really want to know why. Is it because you don't want to pay for it, or is it because you were bringing it to a tyre centre?
They weren't fit to do it.
Understand if the car's the problem for 6 garages or the customer's the problem for 6 garages as well.
And that is half the battle. And it's one of the big things I took away from coming here and having conversations with yourself, James, and the people around us. Is picking and choosing your work.
Use one of your phrases now, James. Thank you for the opportunity. However, I'd like to decline working on your car. I've used that a few times.
And it's I think you've got to do it. And I know some people, when I say it, that are very sales focused or very what they would consider customer service focused, find that quite difficult. I think you've got to be frank and open and honest and have that conversation. If it's not the right customer, as you say, Frazer, not the right car, not the right opportunity, you don't think you're going to be able to work with them, because let's be honest, a car with an issue, a relationship between the garage and the car owner is actually a bit like having a row, in a way that it's nobody's fault, but it's both your faults. And to be able to proceed through that, the car being the issue, to get through that, your client has to have trust in you, and you also in the client. They're telling you the right story, that they're willing and able to have the repair done properly. You're getting all the information you need. You as a garage have been given enough scope to look at it without them being on the phone hassling you, without them trying to tell you to use cheap parts or parts they're looking to supply. There's a whole heap of stuff in the relationship to making a broken car good, that keeps the client and the garage on good terms. Generally is difficult to do if they're off the street. And again, Eugene, that conversation is about understanding that customer and that client before you get involved.
It kind of comes back to walking the dog. Are you walking the dog, or is the dog walking you? You have to be in control of the of your workshop.
You do.
I have, we've never fitted customer supplied parts. It's something I've never fallen into, but I have fallen into. I want to go down this road. I want to go down this road. I want that part replaced. I want that part replaced. And such and such has said, "Oh, this is what it needs," and you've dived in and changed that part, and all of a sudden. It's your fault. So I have been that soldier, So you learn from them lessons,
You do, being in control of the repair, I think, and ultimately you're responsible for the quality. And I think taking charge of the repair and you, the customer, having the confidence in you to do it and taking your advice as a professional, it sometimes used to make me laugh. We had guys turning up in cars here that would be almost trying to tell me how to do the job, and yet would have no idea beyond where the key went in the car of anything about the car. And you almost have to stop yourself asking them about the cheek they have. They have no idea about the car, yet here they are trying to tell the expert how to do its job. that's part of the customer relation thing. And yeah, I often also, my other favourite thought on that is, in your case, Fraser, where maybe that client has been to a garage or two and they've spent some money and it's still not been fixed. They're like a jilted lover on Tinder, looking for more love again. I've been shafted by this other bastard garage and they've taken all my money and promised they'd call me and never did. And they're coming to you with a sceptical look that you're just like the other lot. And
that's where they found Fraser.
Yeah, probably did. That's where I met you lot. That's where you invited me on the course.
But they have a negative impression, and sometimes that in itself can get in the way of ever standing a chance of having a successful repair. If the client's been so annoyed by another garage, you'll never rectify that relationship, and you've almost got to say, we cannot. I don't think we're going to be able to help you with this, and that's not because the car is a technical challenge. It's because the client's got a mental block on trusting a garage to get it right, and you just will never cure that. And in my spidey senses and experience, that was one of the things I would pick up on quite quickly and go, you as a customer, not for me. It's just not going to happen.
We had it very recently where a customer had come in. He'd been to 3 different garages, and he basically came in with printouts of code reads. And he said, right, look, all this has been checked, so I don't want that checked. And I said, right, straight away, I said, we're not the garage for you. If we're taking the job on, we'll start at our start and go through our process. And he said, no, I'm not paying you for that. And exactly like Malc said, I said, well, we'll part ways there then. We'll go no further,
Yeah. Yeah, and you do well to stick to your guns. But having the confidence in to do that maybe, is again, it's not, sometimes the garages find that easy to take control of the relationship for the best outcome, and to be a bit confident and say, we know that's what works, and have the confidence in your own ability to go, if it's got to be our way because we know that works, and your way, what do you know about cars, essentially? I suppose we're not going to say that, but what does the client know about fixing a car? But also, you can also see from their perspective, if they've given good money and had bad service and they think they've already paid for this stuff to be checked, but it probably hasn't been.
Yeah, they're on the back foot already. Yeah.
They're on the back foot and they're feeling a bit abused. This is my jilted lover looking for love again. They've been shafted somewhere else and they're coming for, a steak meal with another garage, and they got this really negative view that you're gonna rip them off. So. Yeah, I don't know the answer about, but I would term that client therapy. I would also, give the customer a bit of therapy and see if they're salvageable in their attitude, and almost get that level of empathy. But it almost moves away from fixing cars to fixing customers and fixing people. And I got to get that person in the right time space continuum before I could ever look at the car. And in a way, so you're not getting paid for that, of course. It's sort of that, and so I might often cut my losses and go, "You're too much. You're too hard work. Like, I won't get past you and your issues. The car is easily fixed, but you probably aren't." Yeah. And I think that's not uncommon. And I hear more garages having the same view to go, right, can I help you as a client, as a person, because. I think that's maybe where the bigger problem lies, not with the car.
We've had people ringing us up, like looking to get their car fixed over the phone, like looking for diagnostics, and then you give them the price. This is what we charge for our assessment, and go from there. And they say, oh no, I can get it done cheaper. And like 2 days later, they'll ring you back and say, I want to go ahead with that. And you ask them, why do you want to go ahead now? And they say, well, I rang 3 other garages and they asked me no questions.
Oh.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And they can start to see the difference. Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, they will. The clever ones or the savvy ones will see that. Yeah, they'll add the 2 and 2 together. Yeah,
we've had a few where I've had to. I don't do much of the front of the house, a tiny bit, but when I've done a diagram on something, I like to have a chat to the customer sometimes. But I've had a few where I've had to say to the customer, it's best to get rid of it, and that's sometimes.
Yeah,
you feel like you're doing a massive favour. Yeah. But then it doesn't go, because it's awkward for them, and then it's probably not the right time to get a new car. And I like the AdBlue ones. I had a couple of them where I had 2 the other week on Citroens, where one coming with loads of AdBlue faults, needed a pump, and the tank obviously, it's about, and then everything else about £3,000 worth. And I knew the engine side's pretty spot on, but the other one wasn't. And I said to him, that's my view on it. I said, he goes, well, what shall I do? I said, we might best go trade it in. But I said, promise, don't let no other garage go there and fit that. I said, because it ain't going to work.
No.
And he took it really nicely. And he come back and said, I thought about it, I really appreciate what you said.
Yeah. I think that's it, isn't it? Again, I think the golden rule with client service is to deal with the people the way that you want to be dealt with. But I often spin that round and think about clients dealing with people like me the way I would want to be dealt with, but they tend to, they're in a focus zone they're in a negative spot. But no, you're dead right there. I think people appreciate the right advice, Eugene, and in case the AdBlue faults are a common one, aren't they? Multiple £1,000 bills are not unusual, and you might be better off. You almost picture yourself as the vet in a way, going, this thing once putting down, it doesn't want operating on. It's gone too far.
You'll mask it for a little bit, and then when that light comes back on, you'll be the first person they'll be pointing the finger at.
Yeah, so you're doing the right thing to have that sort of deeper view about their what's your plans for the vehicle is one of the things I would often hear myself saying, because potentially with that fault it could become very involved, and unless it's special, it's got some sort of I don't know, emotional contact. It was the dad's car or something. It's not economically. It's gonna err towards being unviable.
The assessments whittle that out as well, though, doesn't it? And it gets rid of, like with the AdBlue stuff, we've put our assessments up to probably about 60% higher than the normal one. Because people who, if they've got that fault, have got to be committed for a lot more money to go ahead. So that gets the time waste out. You want to go get it remapped.
That is the good thing about the assessment, because like that, you can decide after the assessment that I don't want to get involved in this car, even though the customer might want to go ahead and fix it. You can decide then to bow out and say, look, this is I'm not happy with either the way the customer is or the way the car is, and then you can say, look, I'm happy to do the assessment. This is my opinion. This is what it needs. But we're not going to get involved in it, and bow out at that stage.
So one thing we see, or I've seen before, is you could fix the problem for customers, fine, 6 months later, that one light's back on, and they think that one light is related. The only thing that's related to that is that job you've done. I had one, when I actually went into EOBD and showed the customer all the things it's looking for, and there's about 200 things. I said, this is a basic car. It's just that light can come on 100 things. Just giving someone that time, though, to talk to them about it, they went, wow. And if anything, they were interested. So rather than, they're like, wow, that's really interesting. So
and when you fixed it the first time, it's now monitoring correctly. So if there's anything else wrong there, it's now going to pick that up because it's now correctly monitoring everything else.
How many times have you fixed one fault and really revealed another fault?
I've started trying to explain drive cycles.
Oh, nice.
You all know, fit a part, fixes it, brilliant. They go on the motorway, do their journeys, and then lo and behold, the light's back on. ECU's now gone, hey, let's find the next. The next week is pointing the puzzle.
Because they've had the light on for the last 3 months, 4 months, something else has failed in that time.
Yes, there's not one light for one fault, and that can be quite difficult to understand. If the one light comes on, and they're driving it around for an extended period, yet other things can fail. It's almost like you have to undo the faults in the reverse order that they were faulted. So you find the last thing first. And the first thing last. So if there's 4 or 5 things in a queue, your drive cycle gets you the first one, your last one is done first, and then they follow back through. So it is a really interesting point that, the fault fix today, we used to advise our clients that the light will come back on. So we set that out in full
I've
up front.
often said that,
So we take any sting out of the tail and go, look, now we've solved this fault. Your car's going to be super attentive to any other things that might be going wrong. We fully expect the light to come back on, and when it does, bring it back, and we'll see that we'll check out what's now it's found. And it's much easier than trying to. The alternate way is to let them be surprised by the light come back on, them come to the reception, and then have that same conversation now, but after the lights come on. And we found that getting that all out, fully expecting the light to come back on. What we used to find, they would come back in and say, "You're right, the lights come back on." Yeah, you knew that, didn't you? You know what you're on about. It's almost that the conversation we were having earlier on about your clients doing the best by the clients. I think pre-warning them that there are no surprises, and if it doesn't come back on, they used to pop in and say, "Look, that light's still not come back on. It's been 2 or 3 weeks, 4 or 5 weeks."
We did that with the DPF work. We always get them back 5-6 weeks later. Look at the shut loadings, that kind of stuff. It gives the customer a bit of peace of mind as well. Like that you haven't just walked away from it.
No, you do. Yeah, you're interested long term. Yeah, and I think most decent garages are concerned. What I love to see from a car owner with a car is that they value that car as a mechanism to get themselves around. So they value that as their means of transport. If it's a complete tip that's got, really cheap tyres on it, and they don't really care about it, we would often do that as part of our assessment. We did the walk around to look at the condition of the car, going, this person hates this car, barely tolerates it in their life. What are they going to invest in getting it right? And in a way where you got that little spidey sense about the customer being a bit off, we would look at the car, and if the car was off as well, it's probably not one for us. And just judgmentally at that level, going, you don't really value the car. And what I say about value the car, somebody that values their car when they're coming for service and maintenance, and they want branded oil, they want good quality filters. They're not necessarily focused on the price, but they're focused on the value of the service. And I love to hear the stuff like, we keep it service and maintains because we want it to be reliable. We don't want it to let us down, so we keep on top of the maintenance. And I think that's probably, again, maybe where garages are selecting clients that own cars about their attitude to the car. That was one thing I would always, you'd look at the car and go, it's nice and shiny, it's clean inside, it's even 10 years old, but it's got all good quality tyres on it, and it's got a bottle of Mobil in the back. You just know it's looked after, and that's somebody that you can probably work with.
I think if you're doing something right, majority of customers will be the ones you want. So
if we get a customer in for diagnostics and it does look a bit rough around the edges, it's have a quick look around that, put it on ramp, see what else, if there's anything else. And then you've got a list of customer and, right, this is wrong with it, and while we're there, you've got this, and and it might turns your mind around to, I might leave that.
We we had a 2011 Passat in for a time belt, and Sean, who did dialectic course with yourselves, bought it in. Dumas flywheel hanging out of it, 4-ball tyres, wishbone bushings gone, list as long as your arm. We rang the customer back and said, look, I know you're only in for time belt, but this needs a hell of a lot of money spent on it. Do you want to just do the time belt, or what do you want to do? And the customer decided, no, he didn't want to do anything, so we ended up shooting ourselves in the foot. We didn't get the time belt work, but you weren't into a ball of trouble either, where you were taking £600, £700 off him for a time belt and saying, you need $4,000 extra spent on it. You weren't putting yourself in that position.
No.
And since you've done my timing belt, me DPF's gone.
Since you've done my timing belt,
me last flywheel's been knocking.
That's it.
Since you don't, the tyres have gone bald.
Yeah. I think that's the power of the VHC. Again, back to process really with your assessment. So assessing the condition of the vehicle and understanding, but assessing the overall condition of the vehicles. VHCs, I know as technicians we sometimes cuss them having to do it as part of our daily, but it does give you a really good picture and to give you the best advice really for the client to go, your car's got major issues here. I know that's your focus, but when you see suspension and tyres and brakes that are in trouble, that's not a well-maintained, reliable vehicle, is it? And I think
they're not going to want to spend money on it.
No,
to get the light out, because probably not that bothered unless it starts. Most time people drive around with the lights, and it's not until they start going into limp mode or.
The other end of that is that the customer goes, we'll get them done at the same time. Then you've got a good customer.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, I think the warning lights are indicative that your grade A client, when they see the warning light, will act on it, whereas your B's and C's are living with a warning light and they wait till something else, behaviourally goes wrong, and that's part of the way that they've maybe been brought up about respecting the machine and valuing the car as transport. They're just different kind of people. That make them bad. It's just they're different. They've got a different perspective. But generally, they're the ones that don't particularly plan that well. And the fact the light's on and they need it now immediately because they can't be without it, but they don't spend any money maintaining it. It's just a weird spot. And I think the VHCs kind of give you a picture of overall impression. And if you've got a difficult fault to chase that could take lots of hours, there isn't really a view about valuing the car. So not really going to.
That grade A customer is the one you want to try to push in front of the queue as well. And
But we also have a customer that he has a 2014 Insignia, and he came to us 4 years ago and said he doesn't want to spend any money on it. He's only keeping it for 6 months. That car's still coming to us.
That's right.
See, I think personally, labour rate has a massive effect on the type of customer you reel into your business. We all know those people that are going to just want to go to the lowest garage and they don't care. Service their car maybe once every 5 years. But I mean, since we put up our labour rate, I've noticed just the better customers you're pulling in.
Yeah.
The customers that don't just sit there and go, oh, how much is this? And they just go, right, when can you do it?
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. And not only that, like you say, the cleanliness of the cars that come in, the better. And even, we all use seat covers and a bit of vehicle protection. Makes a big difference. People go, wow, I thought only main dealers do that sort of stuff. And I think labour rate just kind of separates you from the other garages that aren't invested, that don't want to protect your car, and you're just a number really to them.
Yeah.
And that's
when
what
you
you
see
will
them
be.
better cars, your work's nicer.
Yeah.
And the technicians are happier because they're working on the nicer cars. They're not poking holes in this and poking holes in that. So it's all round, not just...
Yeah, nobody likes working on a shed, that's for sure. As a technician, if you see a pile of junk turning into the workshop, it kind of it gives you that little bit of negativity, doesn't it? Not that we're being judgmental, but you go, do you know what? This car is unloved. It's almost a bit sad, and you've got this car, which could be quite nice, is just not really, it's abused and it's not really taken care of. A bit like a skinny dog limping on 3 legs, really. You feel awfully sorry for it, but, you're sort of limited to what you can do.
Lovely feeling when someone trusts you with their pride and joy.
Pride and joys, yeah.
You were saying about one you did the other day?
Servicing a car, and you look at it, you think it's someone's pride and joy, and they've trusted us to service that, and you take, I don't care what anyone says, you take way more pride in that you would.
You do.
Yeah,
car with sandwich wrappers on the floor and all that. And
like we do forget, it's the car is the second most expensive thing you're ever going to buy, It's cost that customer a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah. And so we want to work with those that want to work, with themselves, that want to keep that reliable and keep it well maintained. Yeah. Now, quick question for you lads there. Obviously, Malc's the chief exponent in the house of doing one brand, particularly. What do we think about specialising in a brand? What are the pros and cons? Would it work for you in your business? Is it something you considered? Shoot me your thoughts about specialisation or non-specialisation.
Wouldn't work for us at all.
No,
because we've already got a massive customer base, and there's not one car that we do more of, I'd say, than anything. But I could see it work if you started up as a business, 1,000,000%. If you started up as going to do this, and because there isn't that many specialists about. I'm not near us anyway, but no, I don't think you could change a business into that as such.
No, so
from what you're already doing. If you're doing it right, to change it, if it's working for you now, to change it would be very hard, I think.
Yeah, I suppose it depends a bit on if you're like a community garage, then Frazer, where you're doing everyone's car.
Yeah, that's what we are. Then you're going to find people say, well, they don't want to do it because they don't like the brand my car is. There is a few brands that we wouldn't like to work on, but
so you might be a bit more, rather than doing everything, you are a bit selective in the stuff that you like to work on.
We've got a couple of the dealer tools, and you delve a bit deeper in some cars than you would other cars. Like we've got something like an Alfa Romeo, and we wouldn't want to delve too deep and stuff like that.
We're exactly the same. Yeah, we don't specialise in any particular brand, but we prioritise other brands. We the PSA group, the Volkswagen group, the Ford group would be our 3 main cars that we have invested higher for, and even though we don't target that customer, if one of them cars comes in, we'll go deeper into it. Whereas other brands we would bow out very early on.
Or maybe is the level of service you offer different, so you'd be able to do service regime service and maintenance at a normal level. But if there was a part needed replacing that you thought might be dealer tool, or there was a complex fault, would you have a break in the service levels that you offer? So for your Alpha, you'd be happy servicing and MOTing and tyres and brakes, but if it came to a weird fault or a light on or something odd, you'd advise them they might have to go somewhere else for that higher level.
Yeah, no, exactly that. And we'd have garages around us that it could be an ex Land Rover mechanic or an ex Mazda technician or whatever, and we say, look, we don't get involved in this kind of job on this model or this manufacturer, but I'll refer you over to this chap, and that's his specialty, you know. So it's, you're not washing your hands of it, but you're not getting involved.
No, maybe referring. So I often think of that a bit like the general practitioner. You know, the GP isn't going to do open heart surgery on you, but he is going to look after your general health. If you've got something big that he wants doing, he's going to refer you. And I think you talk about Land Rover there. You know, maybe some of the bigger mechanical jobs that might need doing, you probably wouldn't want to do, or if you needed special lifting gear or a special frame.
Getting them on the ramps, some of these are an absolute nightmare.
Yeah, they can be a nightmare if they got, you know, horrendous oil leak somewhere and you're going to have to drop the engine or transmission out. You might not want to do something. So doesn't have to be exclusively technical service and maintenance. It doesn't have to be technical fault finding, but it could be something that was just a big job that you wouldn't. Timing tools is a great one, isn't it? Yeah. You know, you haven't got timing tools. That one needs a chain doing. That's beyond what we would want to get involved with. So in that way, then Eugene, you're offering that service to your clients to go, we can refer you to a specialist to do that work.
Like you hit the nail on the head there. Like you're never going to hear a GP saying, "Oh, we don't do that."
No,
it's always, "I'll refer you on to such and such."
Yeah.
But then if you had someone like Malcolm who's near me, I'd rather prefer refer some things to him than me wasting sometimes customers' time. Yeah. And I can get them take to him, and there'll be things that he specialises in that he'll do in half the time, save customers time and money.
Yeah. And back to that network, because I know you've got Mick Shakley, Shakley's up by you, that do some of the stuff that maybe you wouldn't want to get involved with.
Yeah, stuff for Merck software update sometimes, so
that's nice, isn't it, where you can have that collaboration where you've got a garage that you trust. I think, again, Eugene, part of that referencing is that you know that client's going to get looked after well there. And I think that if you're doing multiple brands, that's maybe one of the ways around that, is cross-referencing to another. Stephen, what about in your play? I know you're sort of new in there, but how do they manage brand specialisms or work specialisms in at yours at the minute? Well, you might be now your new job, of course, working all that out.
We've got a Mercedes specialist as well, quite near hand, so we can use them for that. But I see a massive gap from where I am now to no investment, or very little investment over a lot of years.
Ah, right.
So that's the gap I've got, I think.
Yeah.
Just aftermarket thing, I think it's going a direction. You can't do everything.
No.
Whereas I see it daily, where you can only do so much with what you've got.
Or maybe like Eugene, like Eugene said, that maybe if you focus on, so PSA, if you pick Peugeot and Citroen and the new Vauxhall, and you pick Ford, you've got a good chunk of the market. Yeah. If you pick Volkswagen, Audi group as well, then you're probably into 40 or 50% of the cars out there in that swoop. So with the dealer tooling, I suppose, and access to information, isn't it, and technology and repair operations and parts lookups. So you think you've got a bit of building to do where you are now? Is that what you're thinking, to decide to skill up a bit, or in equipment and capability?
Both, yeah.
Yeah, nice.
I think we've got just data. When you've got all data and auto data, and so we've got data to attack most jobs.
Yeah,
but I do think dealer tools, investing in them.
Yeah,
we've got remote capabilities at our other garage.
Oh yeah, like an Oscar style. Yeah, no, nice.
So we've got ways and means of getting through jobs and facilitating all the jobs. I think just training as well. Yeah, because coming here for the last 2 years, you notice massively when you go somewhere that hasn't been invested in training, and then you become like coaching as you're doing the job. That's what I'm finding just now.
Yeah, it becomes obvious in the gap that exists. Yeah, when you're up to speed and somebody else isn't. Yeah. So it's a community garage that you're in now, so you're doing a lot of the local. So again, the picture that Eugene has got going on at his, where you can maybe get a bit deeper on those core brands, and knowing when to say no or how to say no, I think is having for front of house. Again, I'm not quite sure how the new place is set up, but the empowerment of front of house to be sure of the rules of engagement as well. So they are also operating in that same, they know that once it gets to timing chains on Land Rovers, that's a sort of red thing where again, you can have that reference. And I suppose without dragging, Eugene, your place, without dragging you into front of the house, so if you're in the workshop or just almost having a process in the garage to know what you agree to do or not to do. Yeah, having a strategy, I suppose you'd call it. Of we're specialising in brand 1, 2 and 3, and we can do pretty much everything, but brand 4 to 10, that's service and maintenance only, MOT work. Anything more than that, we're not getting involved with, because those are the jobs, aren't they, where you think we'll have a go, and 10 days later the thing's still stuck on a ramp with its guts hanging out.
Picking your battles, I suppose, of what you're going to achieve or have a better go at doing. I think there's plenty out there that you hear the phone call, you speak to them, and you go, no, it's not a job for me. So
either by brand or by client, like we say, or car, or job.
It's kind of like what you hit home very early on. It's the initial interview can save you a hell of a lot of grief. Yeah.
And you'll miss out on a few princes, but you'll miss out more so on the frogs you're not kissing. Yeah, true. Yeah. And Callum, in your place, how does it work? At CCM, I know you've got a bit of an interesting mix with the branches, haven't you? You've got a really interesting.
So obviously we got 3 sites, and we were just finding we were getting so busy. So front of house was just spending the whole time on the phones, which just delayed the workshop even further with ordering parts, approvals and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So we've just put basically a telephone branch, so a main hub, as you will. Every phone call goes in there. There are further stuff in the lineup. So we are trying to build a sort of algorithm. So if a customer rings up, take the details from the customer, what vehicle you're dealing with. Are we dealing with a VAG group, which we know we can easily deal with whatever comes at us, or are we dealing with something weird like a SsangYong, which is it just going to be more of a headache than it's worth?
Yes.
And all the cars basically fall into a traffic light system, red, amber, green, and we just go from there. We all sat down, all the techs. The booking centre know what each tech is good at, what they're not good at, what they like doing, what they don't enjoy doing. Because let's face it, if we all do a job that we enjoy doing, we do it more efficiently. B, you're happier. You go home at the end of the day going, do you know what? Yeah, I've done what I enjoy, rather than, oh God, I've got that still stuck on my ramp tomorrow. And I think the cars are the same. There's nothing worse than diving into a job, and especially some of the garages that I speak to, and they've gone and bought a $2,000 timing chain toolkit, and I'm like, well, you're gonna see one, maybe 2 of them. You're not gonna get your return for it. So at that point, it's easy just to fly the job away and go, no. There's no, everything has to be done with a profit. We're all a business. We're all here to make money. And that's you just got to be clever about how you do it. The same with Diag. I think 90% of garages you could ring up, talk to them, ask them what diagnostic. I don't really like the word diagnostic in terms of thing. It's an assessment, like Eugene says. And I think most of them are just literally plug scanner and read a fault code, paste that part. No, I don't know, mate. There you go. There's your keys. And we see a lot of that, and we do get, especially because we do DSG work, we do see loads and loads of that sort of examples of people. I mean, I had a lady last week, and bless her, she came into the garage, said, I don't know, you're my last resort. It had already had 2 clutch packs. Oh, wow. The gearbox has been opened twice. The mechatronics was sent off for repair. In the end, the fault was with the mechatronics unit, but it wasn't a repairable option. It was an intermittent fault that used to drop out after 20, 30 miles. So it was only the sensible option was to fit a new mechatronics to it. And you could have saved her 2 clutch packs. And it came to a point where she told me that the garages were just arguing with each other, going, no, he's done a rubbish job inside your gearbox. No, he hasn't shimmed your clutch properly. Wow. I just said to her later, look, I'm not going to get involved in any of that. No. Leave the car with me and I'll give you the answer.
Yeah, because that's the sort of specialism, isn't it? In that those transmissions is something that you guys are focused on in one zone. And again, that's a really good example of, knowing your capabilities, gearing up to be an expert in that level, and being able to take that kind of work on. Yeah, so that's a really good example. But I like the traffic light thing again. Red, green, and amber for clients and cars is a great sort of goal to hit. By some of the questions that you can get answered. I think it gives your front of house that empowerment to be able to help select work, even funneling work, or if you've got a question mark, they know that this is one that's not obvious, and when it's not obvious, that needs answering, and that's definitely not a yes to the client. That's I need to go and find out. But yeah, you end up funneling all the good work in that you're capable of doing. So I think that's a really good one. Yeah. Mark, I'm going to spin the question round to you then and say, do you take any non-BMW Mini stuff on at all?
No.
No.
Customer's got a daughter's car, it's not a Mini. Yes. If it's somebody's phoning up, I've got a Merc. We're a BMW specialist.
Yeah.
We don't do Mercs.
No. So you do the also car. So for service and maintenance, if she's got a Polo or something, you do a service on it. You just keep it maintained and going. If 3 of the cars are BM and there's an odd.
Yeah. So exactly as you were saying earlier, we'll if there's anything more than service work, we explain to them when they ask us, "Will you do this car?" Yes, we'll do maintenance, servicing, and I'll say easy work. However, if it becomes diagnostics, we will have a look at it, and we'll do an initial assessment or initial diagnosis, because obviously there will be things that we will be able to fix. Yeah. However, if it becomes something involved and you need dealer tools, we will refer you on to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, the reference thing. Yeah. No. Interesting. Good stuff. And then Frazer, we know that your general repair, you've got your specialisms again, so you are sort of following that bit of funneling, but you're doing service, maintenance, repair, MOT on almost everything, and then
almost
you're picking, you're picking your battles for the brands that you support with dealer tool and the info. Yeah, that's interesting stuff.
Like Land Rovers, we tend not to offer them repairs.
That's everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just
they're special, aren't they? They are special. Yeah.
Then we don't get involved in any engine mechanical work.
No.
Really. Do time belts and that, but nothing.
No, you wouldn't be building engines anymore.
No way.
Is anyone doing any of that heavy duty mechanical engine rebuild stuff? Yeah,
occasionally.
Two nods. Yeah, Callum's doing a bit. Yeah, if it's worth doing, I suppose.
That's it. You've got to take into the risk, and is it worth? I mean, me and Eugene earlier, we were talking about the 1.5 PSA Ford engine, the timing chain cradle breaking on them. Seems to be quite common thing, doesn't it, at the moment? And it seems to be they all out just out of warranty as it's happening. So they're quite shockingly big bills that the customers are getting.
But the car's still got some intrinsic value, so it's worth doing. It's worth, and it's a reliable repair. Yeah. Some of them haven't. No.
And they can't get hold of them either.
No.
Yeah. That seems to be the other issue.
It's a big issue, I think, isn't it? Parts availability seems to be one of the biggest challenges, I think, probably for the last 12 months even. It just seems to be getting worse that you've got stuff on back order or made of unobtainium where, what you would think would be a sensible repair on a sensibly aged vehicle, the part's gone, no stock, no idea when we're going to get it. And I think that's probably quite tough, isn't it, from a client perspective? But again, I think garages can get caught out where you'll part way through a repair to discover it needs this thing. It's in bits and you can't get that thing anymore.
But you're the one who's got to tell the customer owners. And when they ask when, like anyone would, we literally have no answer.
No, my supplier's telling me sometime never.
Yeah,
it's a tricky one. I think it is a tricky one. I'm sure this 10-year-old, supporting a car for 10 years with parts, from the factory is being, I suppose, ignored largely, or the OEM are having trouble. I think with electronic parts as well, where the COVID made an interruption to manufacturing, and some of the chipsets and bits inside boxes now have gone end of line. Electronic components we're finding with the reason we sparked back up the EEPROM coding and programming was because of the unavailability of control units, body control modules, and such like. You have no option but to use a used unit and go do the tiptoe dance around VIN codes and coding the thing in to keep that car on the road. And let's be right, I think probably ecologically, what's seeing a lot of cars scrapped would be a box the size of a paperback book is seeing that whole valuable asset being scrapped. All of the energy that went into moulding the metal and making the engine is being written off because of an infotainment unit or a body control module. So I think that's probably one of the big things that's happened is unavailability of electronic stuff. But it is tricky with the diag that way. Yeah. Oh, cool stuff. I wanted to talk then, because that's a really good discussion. I wanted to talk about Futurescape. So thinking about what's coming around the corner, being that we're sort of thinking a bit about what goes on in the garage and we're shaping the future. We've got our strategy organised. We're quite well planned in what we're doing. What are we thinking is coming up then? Trends in automotive repair that we're going to be seeing in the next 12, 24, 36 months. What do we think? Maybe talk about powertrains. Do we see any changes or challenges there, or technology that we're going to have to be either wary of or gearing up for? What do we think the next sort of 3 or 4 years holds for us in the Garage industry? If you could see, I know it's difficult to predict the future, but what are we thinking it's shaping up like? Hydrogen, yeah.
More EV stuff. We're starting to push a bit more now to see more, because you want to take more on, but I think soon there's going to be a lot of the out of warranty periods, or I don't know, a lot of people leasing, but what they're going to do after with all these cars that people get back after a few years.
I think the motor trade is really in limbo at the moment, where there was a massive big push in EV, and now there's nearly a push back against it.
Yeah.
They've gone from 2030 to 2035, no more
internal combustion
enginized engines, so nobody really knows. Like 2 years ago we would have all said, we have 5 more years, 6 more years of internal combustion. Now we could have 10 more years. It's very, very hard to plan for, especially where in back home now in Ireland, where there was initially a massive push on EV. Now that's literally just fallen off a cliff. They're plummeted,
Yeah.
So it's very, very hard to plan at the moment, we find,
Yeah, with the investment, because we have to be sort of mindful. And I think definitely in the UK, with the government pulling it from 2035, they pulled it back to 2030. And what happened with that timescale, I think for electric vehicles, they were definitely saying that it had to be pure EV, that hybrids weren't really acceptable. Based on some research they'd done about people that had got hybrids as company cars, and they'd found that the hybrid was never being used. The charging lead had never been out. The thing was running like a petrol engine, dragging around all these batteries. And they took the tax advantages away from some of those hybrids. But now now the new group are in charge. I say in charge. They're behind the wheel. Whether they're actually in charge or not, any of them, I wouldn't be too sure. But we're getting strong vibes now that 2035 is back on the agenda. And at the end of 2035, they're also saying that hybrids will be allowed. So we'll see internal combustion engine. So 2035 is 11 years. It's interesting, you're right, Eugene. I think I get the feeling that the EV push has definitely subsided about pure EV. Hybrid probably makes technically the most sense if you were taking away the pure view that these things are going to save the planet. If we could have a technology that mitigated the impact a bit. So we're burning carbon-based fuels. We know that's going to have to happen. But if we used hybrid, where we're using partly EV and partly ICE, we go from maybe 35 or 40 miles to the gallon. Because I think diesels, I don't know if anyone in the house, here's a quick straw poll. Does anyone believe diesels are going to survive any time into the future?
No.
We think they're all dead, yeah. So EV new model sales are down at 6% per annum. 94% of all vehicles sold for the last number of years are not diesel. So I think that's going to dry up. And I think one of the big shocks to industry, if we think about those garages that haven't had training, who are lulling away thinking that the world's going to go on, diesel's new vehicle sales have shrunk and shrunk and shrunk and shrunk. The old ones that are getting older with DPF offs and stuff, we're going to have new MOT legislation, which is going to kind of hover up, change the standard, and that's going to see a lot of old ones written off. And And I think the bit in the middle is going to get compressed. So we're going to have no new ones coming in for the last 5 or 6 years, or little new ones. The long tail of the old ones are going to get cut short by this new emissions, and we're going to see diesels being condensed, and we're going to be facing petrol engines, direct petrol engines, GPFs and hybrids. And I think that, for me, I think that's the way the future's going to shape. I like Malcolm's view about hydrogen. I've got this weird feeling that a hybrid hydrogen's going to be maybe on the agenda. So when we think carbon-based fuels are limited because of the negativity on the environment, I think carbon-based fuels have to be made to go further for the same amount. I think the emissions of diesels have made them a no-go. I was in Germany last week, and I was listening to a conversation in one of the things that we were doing, and the Germans have a huge issue with switching off the nuclear power stations. What crazy lot of Greens have got in there and said nuclear power is no good, and they're actually questioning whether or not they've got spare grid capacity to make EV work, bearing in mind the current crazies in charge have said nuclear is a bad option. I think that'll get undone and their nuclear will be switched back on. But they're at the point now where they're pursuing e-fuels. So they're looking at synthetic, not carbon-based fuels, but synthetic hydrocarbons. So we can still have internal combustion engine. We can still have a hybrid or an EV with it. And we're making that fuel go further. But they're having a hybrid with e-fuels. Looks like the way that that's shaping up, which is quite interesting. Which is almost, you said there, Malc, about hydrogen. I think hydrogen has got some issues with it in terms of burning it inside an engine. I think the fuel cell, again, is an interesting way of a version of an EV. Of course, what's one of the big advantages? Do we know what's one of the big advantages with hydrogen over pure EV? Does anyone have an idea? Why would
reusable energy?
Yeah, so it's reusable, so we can turn green windmill energy into hydrogen. So where the windmills are normally switched off overnight because nobody's using it, what you can do is keep the windmill turning and turn the wind energy into hydrogen. The hydrogen actually acts like they call it an energy vector, but I've basically stored wind as hydrogen. I didn't need to use it at that moment, but I can turn it into hydrogen and ship it somewhere. So we can generate for longer, and we can store peak energy when we don't need it, store it as hydrogen and then use it some other time. So it's used as an energy vector. It doesn't produce any carbon. When we use it, there's no carbon in it. It's just hydrogen. The H of hydrocarbons is hydrogen, so there's no C for carbon. But yeah, burning it's really bad because it's not really bad. It doesn't give the same sort of energy, the same bang for our buck. So it's a bit thin as a fuel. So you need sort of more of it to get the same equivalent power. But as a fuel cell, it kind of works. Rather than a battery, you have hydrogen in stored. I think we're such a way off from that. I think e-fuels are probably quicker sooner than hydrogen. I think hybridization still makes a lot of sense. You've got your EV to stretch whatever fuel you're using to be burning. And I think the training and investment you guys have done in knowing all about EVs, and you'll do that as part of this module, of course, is going to stand well. But yeah, if we look at T plus 11 years, which is 2035, I think we'll start to see probably more hybrids coming, less of a focus on pure EV, but with, unfortunately, what may be the right technical solution doesn't win your votes. And unfortunately, the decision-making process is corrupted ever so slightly by the crazy clowns in charge getting voted back in the next time, and they'd be making decisions about what's popular and maybe not what's right. But I think if you look at the mix of stuff, yeah, we might have to throw a bit of hydrogen knowledge in there, and we might have to get a little bit jiggy with e-fuels. But I think hybridization and electric in combination with internal combustion is probably what's going to see me out. I'm probably 10 years odd before I want to retire, and I think we'll be more EV. So yeah, I think on that side of it, the powertrain. What about the rest of it? What about the other parts of the car? Anybody got any radical views about what else we've got going on inside cars that might change the way we work?
I spoke to a Skoda salesman recently, and he informed me that 2027 there'll be no more manuals.
Oh, okay.
They're going fully automatic from 2027.
Nice. DSG heaven.
I was going to say, keep me in business.
DSG heaven for Callum, yeah.
So like even that will be a big change, and we're seeing more and more. We have a couple of customers that are they do teaching how
learner drivers.
That's the word.
Yep.
And they're seeing more and more people now that just want to do automatic.
Not interested.
Not
in
interested in the manual at all.
No.
And you know, the way the trends are going, you know, in 10 years, will we see a manual car? Probably not, yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think from the efficiency side of life, you know, the automatics can be programmed to keep you in that sweet spot of energy creation, and you're not driving around in second gear when you should be in fourth and fifth. But of course, for me, I think one of the big, in 2015-16, when we got ADAS became more mainstream, one of the things that struck me was how you needed an automatic vehicle to be able to manage some of the self-driving aspects, so slowing down and speeding up the car. You know, you have to link that to an automatic, because you can't be dipping the clutch when the car's in control, because it switches off, you know, predictive radar and cruise and stuff. So yeah, I think, you know, autonomous vehicles and the cameras and radars and all that sort of stuff are linked to automatic, because really it's a case of one pedal, the loud pedal, and a bit of steering, and the car takes care of all other aspects. So I can see, if we think about autonomous vehicles coming in and cameras and radars, how that, you know, automatic vehicle transmission is on the growth. So I think that's a great shout. Maybe we're going to be doing multi-plate clutches in DSGs, but maybe not manual transmissions. Sounds good. I think sounds good for an efficiency point of view as well. You know, that the car is making the best of it. You know, if you think about a DSG, they're lovely to drive, aren't they? I got to be honest. It is a great little transmission. The manual automatic, if you like. But that's a great shout. What about autonomous vehicles? Anyone got any views about robot cars or self-driving cars?
Speed regulation. I'm guessing that's going to be
That's the next thing that's coming in, I think, as an EU regulation. Yeah. So the road, you know, the car not being able to exceed the limit, the camera spot, again, for road safety. Yeah, I think, I'm not sure how I feel about that. I think some people could do with speed regulation for sure. Maybe because they're, you know, not safe drivers, but I think that's erring towards taking the responsibility away from the driver. But speed regulations, I think, is coming in as part of a regulation, legislation. Yeah, where cars manufactured after a set date are going to have that as an option. And that's partly GPS and partly camera. So the cameras are spotting the road signs, the GPS knows the road layout and the speed threshold, so you won't be able to go faster than the set speed limit, which, again, I think they're selling that a little bit on fuel economy, because if you're on and off the pedal, you're, of course, wasting a lot of fuel beyond the brakes. Of course, one of the other big focuses is particulate emission. So they're focusing now on tyres and brakes and friction material having an impact on the environment. I think that's part of the sell about speed limits, Malc, about automatic speed limitation, is you can kind of pitch the speed, acceleration and deceleration of that vehicle, not have to be touching the brakes. So, you know, not wearing out tyres and that sort of thing. So
yeah, see, a lot of cars already have it in the adaptive cruise control.
They do.
You know, they'll read the speed sign and they'll slow down or speed up as it goes. So, you know, it sounds horrendous, but it probably won't be any different than what we're doing now.
No.
I think
extra bit of software.
Yeah, it is a bit of
autonomous on the motorways, I think, would be a good idea.
Yeah.
It'll be the next thing to be mapped out. It'll be the new DPF remap. We'll be remapping cars, taking
consistent
speed limiter,
speed limiter removals,
speed limiter solutions.
Yeah.
All those old cars without speed limits, mate, their value will just rocket.
Oh well, you know, funny, Callum. I think if you were looking to make a few quid on cars, I think if you buy something with a throttle cable or more than 6 cylinders, I think it'll be a big push towards the sound of a free revving engine as we go more towards, you know, speed limited and what have you. I think that you're right. There will be a bit about where is the joy in driving. I think we were talking about the final of the Grand Tour, yeah, and the way that people love cars and they love the experience of driving. I think be a bit careful to take the joy out of driving, because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I quite like to take the long way to work. If I'm driving the right sort of car, it gives you a bit of joy, doesn't it, behind the steering wheel? Get the windows down, get the stereo up, have the noise of the engine. There is something, I think, primordial to driving that I think the joy police could really dampen our spirits of driving stuff.
I spoke to someone with a EV and Audi e-tron, and he said the first day he got in it, the best car in the world. After that, just because it's drives so good. He said the excitement just goes because it's always performing so good.
Yeah.
He said it's just one way of driving.
Yeah.
That's it. He said that's the biggest thing he missed with an EV.
Yeah, it is very, very vanilla, very plain.
So it's brilliant, but it's always brilliant.
Yeah.
There's no different modes or way you're going to drive it.
No, we have to wait for the new generation of pop songs that talk about the whoosh, not the roar of the engine. Yeah. Hear my motor running. No, probably hear my EV charging. That doesn't really have the same ring, does it?
Yeah, it'll be the new ASMR. You'd be going to sleep at night listening to V8s and V6s.
Yeah. Yeah, no. So autonomous is another one, of course. Which has got some implications for workshops in terms of steering, suspension, geometry, calibrations, and we've had them out probably for 8 or 9 years. And I think that's probably we're going to see more of that robotization of the car, self-driving and speed limitation. And probably have to gear up with that, and some of the network technology that's maybe going to come as well. Ethernet and over-the-air updates and vehicle to grid and vehicle to vehicle networks are probably going to throw a different spin. But I think powertrain, we probably got it sussed there. More hybridization. Cool stuff. Men, I'm going to come to you now because we're coming to the end of our conversation to think about what you would change in the industry. So we have a tradition, I guess you'd call it, of thinking about if you could change anything in this industry that we all, I think we all got a love-hate relationship with, but we all kind of love it. What aspects of the industry that you face day to day, week to week, month to month, would there be that you might change? It can go from anything from, parts delivery through to car manufacturers, anywhere in between. If there's something in your heart of hearts that you would love to change, I'm going to give you the option to wave the magic wand and to make that difference. I'm going to give you all one or maybe 2 wishes. You can have a wish on the up swoop and a wish on the down swoop of the magic wand. What would it be that if you could make it, not for yourself and for others maybe in the industry, that you would want to change? What would that be? Who wants to kick me off?
I think everybody has given you this answer already, but I think it has to be licensing.
Yeah,
I think if licenses come in, it'll change so much. It will change the every workshop will have to conform to a certain standard. It will change the perception the customer has on the workshop.
Yeah.
It'll raise professionalism. It'll bring in apprentices. I think that should be everybody's focus, should be licensing.
You'd be recognised for being qualified more than just your college.
Appreciation.
Yeah.
You'd be appreciated more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that the licensing is a great one, and what the licensing stands to do first of all is there's a bit more regulation, some more hoops to jump through for the good garages, but it could get rid of some of the shadier garages further down the line. Or for instance, in the case that we had there of the AdBlue delete, that could be grounds in which you lost your license, and even just the threat of that would stop those garages carrying on in that behalf, in that means, because at the minute that's really shady behaviour, potentially destroying a client's car, making the car illegal, grounds to lose your licence, and that might be one of the ways to stop some of the shadier practices going on and to raise the standard. So it's a great one about licensing, and we can only hope and pray that people are listening to that. Of course, licensing again drops into the political agenda. That do the government of the day have the heart to do it? Do they have the means to do it? And is there a big enough voice? Do we have representation of our trade strong enough that's got all of our interests at heart that can bring that to government? And that's a question. So again, we can just keep banging that drum and feed it back to your representatives of the trade bodies, and every opportunity you get is to call for licensing.
Well, I think that's one thing EV will bring into the trade. It will be licensing, will be higher standards, because EV has the potential to cause a lot of harm to the technicians. So I just hope it's not going to take 1 or 2 fatalities to get the powers that be to recognise that. Yeah. It's a good opportunity. I think whenever you see a big change in technology, there's a chance then that can be a watershed to go, look, this is all very different now, and we need to think about it differently. Yeah. So, it's a good show.
I totally agree with the licensing and regulations, and that was what I was going to say. But I think one thing why it won't happen is because some of these garages are already on the back foot anyway, and then that will just go, do you know what, I've had enough of it, and that's the majority of them MOT stations, and the government won't shut them down because everyone's already fit to burst with MOTs. Yeah, so they just...
Yeah, you could say maybe you could say about the difference between licensing a garage to repair and because garages, the MOT garages are pretty well maintained, pretty well managed in terms of standards. And you could say, look, your MOT standard, if you haven't got your license to repair because you're not to the relevant training, what have you, you can stay doing MOTs only, but you can't do the repair. I think that is probably more like it, that the option of nowhere to repair your car that fails the MOT is a big issue. The number of garages has shrunk slightly over the last few years, and the availability of getting your car fixed is a bit of a challenge. I think that could be one of the reasons that we're not necessarily being told, but stopping people having an option to repair their means to get to work is a bit of a threat. As you look back to when we had all those horrendous lockdowns, the car industry or the motor industry was seen as being one of those that we had to keep working to keep the industry, the motor, the countries going. I think that's one of the reasons where they're freaking out about licensing, is that you stop all of a sudden, you cut the number of garages in half. Where do people get their cars fixed?
But isn't there a massive problem in that statement itself?
There is.
That the reason they don't want the licenses because they recognise that there is such a low standard there.
Potentially. Potentially of stopping so many garages. And this is where I think, much as I love and hate the IMI in the same breath sometimes, depending what we're talking about, I think that they've had a really good idea with whether they've implemented it correctly, but they've got the TechSafe register, and what they've tried to do there is build a network of accredited people to almost give the government no option but to say, the government is saying, look, we won't be able to bring licensing in because it will cut the number of garages that can fix cars overnight. And the IMI are going, hang on a minute, here's a ready pre-baked array of garages that are up to the relevant standard. You can do it because, look, within 2 miles of everybody that has a car, there's a garage that's TechSafe. And I think, love them or loathe them, that definitely is one of those reasons we should support them, because...
Is that in discussion, is it, to do that? Or
well, you have to have a network before you cut people out. Yeah. You have to have an alternative, and that's really what the TechSafe is all about, in my view. Not all about, but one of the reasons is we've got a credible Plan B network. So let's bring licensing in, because all of these guys are already accredited and they can be the ones that fix the cars. So yeah, that's, I think, foresightful in the guys at the IMI that they've done that, and that's one of the things we'll keep our fingers crossed that gets us towards licensing.
It may be a very simplistic view on it, but if they turned around and said, right, well, by 2030 or 2035, you have to be licensed, and then you could turn around to schools and say, look, by 2035, if you go into the motor industry, you have a job for life, you have so many opportunities.
Career progression, career path, It's the other way of doing it, is to set a deadline and a threshold by which time you have to have the standard implemented. And I think there's that approach with the IMI's TechSafe register that's got several thousand garages on it, and the deadline by which you have to comply would be the way to do it. And the government, really, if you're going to say, how do we achieve this? It's those two things. TechSafe as a standard and a deadline for garages. If you want to be an MOT station, you absolutely have to be on the TechSafe register. You have to be EV friendly. You have to know about autonomous vehicles, and you have to have your level 3 and above, and you have to have relevant training within the last period of time. It would be, if I was going to be the licensing czar, they would be the things I think I would say this has to happen. And I probably would leave it 2030 or 2029. I'd give 2 or 3 years to give everyone the chance and no excuses to do it.
The people who want it will
comply.
It definitely would be the tide that would raise all ships.
I think you're right. And it would sink those that need sinking.
Definitely. More importantly,
Absolutely. Some submarine operators. Anybody else got any other wish other than the venerable one about technician licensing? Because it is an awesome one. Anybody else got anything burning a hole in their heart about they wish it could be done differently?
I think for me, MOTs.
Yes.
I think the standard of the whole book needs to be rewritten.
Yes.
I think the standard needs to come up.
Yeah.
When the book was written, you were dealing with 1,200, 1,300 kilos worth of car. Most of the hybrids, we were talking about today, fully EV vans are like almost 4 ton.
Yeah.
That's 4 ton of machine driving down the motorway that can be on tyres that are like 1.7 mil, just scrape through an MOT.
Yeah.
You know, we all know that person isn't going to check those tyres every week. And that's how they'll stay on the motor, or that's how it'll stay on the road till next year when it fails. So I think they need to bring the standard a lot higher.
Yeah. So the tyres is a great one. My own heartbreaking view about the MOT standards are stuff like visual inspection, where it's behind a cover and you can't see it, you can't look at it. There ought to be maybe a bit more invasive investigation. So I think in corrosion, I had a car once that split a brake pipe on the road, and the car, you couldn't see the brake pipe because it was behind a cover, and therefore all the rest of it was visually inspected. But I think, and lucky enough that didn't cause a major catastrophe. But there are things, I think in chassis and corrosion and other things, the factors that could be inspected. I think the inspection regime could be lifted. I think I agree. We had that conversation about 3 and 1. So is the 3-year interval right, or should it be 2? 2 and 1. Should the cars be left for 3 years when a car could do 60, 70,000 miles? That's a bit of a another subject, but I think you're right. The standard of MOT could be lifted. It always seems to be pass and advise, even when you yourself wouldn't run a car like that. It seems to be acceptable. As an engineer, you'd look at that and go, that one's changing because it's worn out. It's deemed to be acceptable, by the MOT standard to pass and advise. I think you see a lot of people putting too much faith in the MOT, not having the cars maintained and serviced. They think the MOT almost is a service where they're booking it in for an MOT and they go, it passed the MOT, therefore it must be roadworthy. And you're going, well, do you know what? It passed the bare minimum specification, bare minimum for roadworthiness. And I think that in the psyche of the motorist is seen as the upper level of the standard. I think the trade, we see it as the absolute bare minimum. If it's great for an MOT, probably wouldn't. If it was an airplane, I wouldn't be flying in it. And I think that's the sad thing, as you say, Callum, with the weight and the speed of these vehicles increasing. Yeah, the standard is slack. And I think for us to be saying that in the trade, it is definitely wants looking at. Yeah, again, it's partly politicised because the VOSA is a government agency. I don't know about your own view about VOSA, but I don't think those boys and girls have had a lot of resource or backup or support from various governments, and they're running that on a bit of a shoestring and a budget, and they are putting up with specifications which are I think probably verging on the absolute bare minimum. So that's a great one. Yeah, we'll get the fairy godmother out to sort out MOTs ready for Christmas. Yeah, that'd be pretty awesome. Anybody else got anything else about special wishes or things you'd want to change? Or are we fairly sure we've sorted it there with licensing and the MOT?
Yeah, I think licensing would tick a lot of boxes.
Yeah.
More people training, meet more people at places like this, be a better community in the whole trade, more garages working together.
Less customers getting ripped.
Everyone can raise up together and just up the standard.
What about information? I mean, I've got it from a different point of view, but what about your guys? Information, dealer information, ready, available?
To be fair, we can all be negative against everything, but I think that the information is getting better. You certainly have to know where to look for it, and it's it could be a lot more readily available. But again, it's about knowing where to look and how to look and what you're looking at. I think, a lot of people that talk about not having the information, when they do get the information, they don't know what to do with it.
No.
Most times you can always get it.
Yeah.
You got to either put your hand in your pocket or...
Yeah, there's a cost to it, and that cost has to be passed on.
Yeah, and know how to pass it on, definitely.
Well, I think all of the sturdy garages that are go ahead, don't mind paying for the data, and they see that charging that onto the client. I think probably with almost one exception, no names, no patrols, but it is German and there's a star on the front of it, don't necessarily really play by the rules when we comparison to others. I think the industry, Malc, has now got its act together a bit with the ability to access. If you sign up, if you're a stand-up garage, you can join the scheme, you can pay your money, and you can get access to diag and info generally. Renault probably the other one. We shouldn't pick out Mercedes really, but Renault are also a bit slack. They've got the info right, but they don't have the diag machine. You cannot buy that machine. You cannot buy software updates. They've got this half-arsed Euro 6 thing, and I think one of the things that's missing for me, we talk about standards, is that the standard in helping garages bring the motor manufacturers to task when, like Renault, you cannot buy the dealer tool, you cannot get access to that, you cannot get software updates. They throw this rubbish old Euro 6 thing at you, which doesn't work. I think that in itself does a disservice to clients. You know, sorry, Mr. Renault owner, we can't help you because we can't get access to your software. It shoots Renault in the foot over time because people with Renaults can't get them serviced anywhere, and they won't buy another one because the value of the car dips. But for me, what boils my blood is the industry bodies aren't standing up for us to help us with that. A lot of the stuff that's happened has probably happened on a European level, but who do we complain to that we can't get a Renault dealer tool?
Yeah, Sermi.
Well, who's Sermi? Yeah, it's this magic pie in the sky. Yeah, we kicked Sermi around a little bit in a previous chat, but I don't think that's the be all and end all. But yeah, I think where's the big red telephone that we can phone and get Renault a good kick up the hole for not giving us their diag tool? That's probably what we need. Yeah, cool stuff. Well, men, we've been going for a little while now, so it all remains for me is to thank you for giving up your time. Really appreciate you coming and sitting down and sharing your thoughts. Hopefully, it wasn't such a scary. It wasn't such a scary event as you maybe thought. And I really appreciate it. And I think, you're getting our voices out there and having people listen to them who are further up the food chain that can hear, grassroots views about the industry is one of the real reasons that we set up the technical Synchromesh, to have these conversations about what we see from our perspective. And maybe we can live in hope that somebody higher up will listen to this and, see that it's coming from the ground floor and can help us change some of the stuff that we can see is wrong. So thanks for giving up your time, thanks for sharing your opinions, and we'll see you sometime soon.
Oh, thank you.
Cheers.
Thank you.